Hello and welcome and Happy New Year and welcome to the shed. Hashtag Irish Prince Mafia with me, Trevor. This is the first show of 2025. You're very welcome along. I've been missing the last few weeks. Without going too deep into it, I just had a severe, very, very severe absence in my mouth, slash had to get tooth out, slash couldn't do anything. This is the best week I've been in about a month almost. So I do apologize for my absence. And anyone that has been talking to me behind the scenes, thank you very much for your support and asking the questions. I am back. I am continuing to do what I do. It's just that the last 3+ weeks have been torture, and thankfully now the torture is hopefully is starting to settle down a bit and it'll be gone. Please God. You're very welcome along to the show and Happy New Year. Belated Happy Christmas to everybody. We're getting ready now. We're in week 18 of the season. This weekend's games, there's a lot of good games on paper, but won't be a lot of good games with the teams that will be played. So I'm going to do a quick preview, and some of the games will be just a quick preview. It's even hard to pick because you don't know who's going to start, but we'll see how it goes. Then I'm just going to do a few little things. I'm not going to keep it very long tonight. It's the first video back for the year. I have 3 surprises for this season so far in my eyes. I have the 3 biggest letdowns of the season so far in my eyes. I have the Rookie of the Year nominees and who I think maybe will win it. I don't think any shoulds or anything like that. And then the MVP race and what's my thoughts on that. But we'll get to that later on in a few minutes. While we're gone, the Bills have taken the number 2 seed. Am I disappointed we didn't get the number 1? Not really. In fairness to the Chiefs, the last 3 or 4 games, they've looked very good over Christmas. Now, how good were Pittsburgh? I don't know. And how good were the Texans once Tank Dell got injured? I don't know. They were, to be honest, I wish Tank Dell the best in his recovery, but if he hadn't got injured, would they have won that game? These are ifs and buts because the Texans were putting the pressure on, but only time will tell. So they got the number 1, and fair play and good luck to them. I have looked at this weekend's fixtures list, and there's, for me, 7 games that may have some impact on things, and they're the games I'll probably talk a little bit more about. The rest of the games then is just who they're going to pick or who they're going to play. If they're, they might give me a shot, give me a game yet. Teams will be resting players are in the playoffs, and other teams will be, well, most of the teams will be getting ready to go on their holidays or whatever else they're going to do. So on Saturday night, there's 2 games. Maybe Sunday morning will be one, but we'll call it Saturday night here. So you have the Browns at the Ravens, and then you have the Bengals at the Steelers. Now, the Browns at the Ravens, this should be a Ravens win, regardless if they put out Lamar Jackson or nobody. The Browns are just, to be honest, I don't know how Kevin Stefanski will hold on to his job, or Barry will hold on to his general manager's job. I don't know if they deserve to hold on, but they're a team. They've surprised before, but the Ravens have nothing to play for, and it's the last game. The Ravens are they have their division to play for. Excuse me, I'm incorrect in saying that. They have their division to play for. But even if they don't win their division, if they come second in the division, fair enough, they don't get the hat and the T-shirt, but they will play the Houston Texans in the first round of the playoffs as the number 5 seed. So, to be honest, it's a win-win for them. If they lose, they lose, and if they win, they win the division and they have a home game. Whereas the Bengals Steelers, there was an awful lot in that game. And that's the late game Saturday night or Sunday morning, whichever way you want to look at it. I will be honest, if the Bengals get through, they play us. Or if the Broncos get through, they play us. And I cannot see the Dolphins getting through. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it could happen. Out of them 3 teams, I want Joey Burrow. I want the Bengals. I want to play the best of them three teams, and he's the best of them three teams. The Bengals-Broncos game last weekend was one of the best games I watched in a long time for excitement. We've played brilliant games, don't get me wrong, as in the Bills, and have the Bills-Lions game was one of the best you could see. The Bills-Rams game was one of the best you could see. But it was like a playoff game in it, everything on it. And they got the win. Like when they hit the post with the overtime kick, I thought that was it. But Joey Burrow got them down. And without him, they'd be nothing. But with him, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, these three guys have, catapulted them back into the playoff race as slim as chance they have. Like, they have to win, the Dolphins have to lose, the Broncos have to lose, and then they'll get in. So there's a lot of ifs and buts, and the Dolphins are playing the Jets, and it ain't going to happen probably. But anyway, we can, dream. But I would like to play the Bengals. I would like that first game at Highmark Stadium to be against the Cincinnati Bengals, against Joe Burrow, and put that to bed. Then, whatever the next game is, put that to bed. And then the Chiefs, and put them to bed. And if you get to there, then you're looking at a Super Bowl that you can go in and say, well, we'll win this. We've beaten the best to get here. We've done that so far, and then we move on from there. But these are ifs and buts and maybes. So we'll talk about them in future weeks. But for me, I think the Ravens will beat the Browns, and they'll win the division. I think the Bengals will beat the Steelers. I think the Steelers have hit a wall, and they'll get the number 5 seed. They'll play the Texans, and it'll be two rubbish teams in form-wise. Don't get me wrong, I'm not being smart, but form-wise, two rubbish teams that are playing that will get into the next round of the playoffs. One of them will, unless something happens. Because for me, the Texans are broken. They're broken that night. Tank Dell got injured, not because he's the main man or anything, but C.J. Stroud took it awful bad, and he's not playing. And if he's not playing, they're not going to play. The Steelers, like, their defense is wobbling a bit because there's so much pressure on them, and their offense isn't delivering. Now, they did hammer the Bengals earlier in the year, and Russell Wilson had a field day, but this Bengals defense is improving, and this Bengals offense is on fire. And when have Joe Burrow on fire, and then guys you can hit that are on fire, they're going to be hard to stop. So I'm going to take the Ravens, and I'm going to take the Bengals on the Saturday night games. Then on Sunday, another game that's kind of relevant. I don't know how relevant it'll be, but it's the first one on my list. It's the Panthers at the Falcons. The Falcons have to win, and the Buccaneers have to lose. So we can take the two of them together. The Falcons, I think, will beat the Panthers. Michael Penix Jr. is doing good in his 2 games so far. It was more Raheem Morris that cost them the game against the Commanders, with his time management at the end of the normal time. And where they didn't call a timeout with 33 seconds left, that would have given them a bit more time to work out what they wanted to do, not rush, and maybe they'd have got down for a field goal or a touchdown, who knows. But then again, these are all the ifs, buts, and maybes. The Panthers were playing well up to last weekend, and then the Buccaneers smashed them. And I mean smashed them. And Baker Mayfield is on fire. Mike Evans is on fire. They are a team that in the NFC could be a dark horse. They are playing at home to the New Orleans Saints. And I know it's a derby game, or a divisional game as he called it over there, but I'm going to pick the Buccaneers in this, and that'll put the Falcons to bed. It'll be a big letdown for the Falcons. There's a lot of questions now as why didn't they choose Bill Belichick as their head coach over Raheem Morris? But again, like everything else, why didn't you do this or that? It's simple after the fact, is to do it when you're supposed to. And in fairness to the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers have been playing super football all year, exciting, enjoyable, watchable football, where the Falcons have been playing up 1 week, down 2 weeks, up 1 week, down a week. It's, the Buccaneers haven't. So I hope they get through. So I'm picking the Falcons and the Buccaneers in them games. Then we have the Commanders at the Cowboys. There's nothing to play for. The Eagles have won the division. I know it's a divisional game, but if I was the Commanders and I'm in the playoffs, I'm resting my players. The Cowboys, well, they're on their second string. They're at home. I'm going to pick them because the Commanders will rest their players. They have to. They should do. To give yourself a better chance in the first week of the playoff. You're already in the playoffs. And the Cowboys have nothing to lose. It's their in the game. They want to put a show on for their fans. They should too. Their fans deserve a show. They've been awful all year. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys in that. Then we have the Bears and the Packers. Packers are into the playoffs as well. The Bears have nothing. They're offering nothing. There needs to be a total change there. Even if the Packers play their second fiddle, which they should do, I'm still going to pick the Packers to beat the Bears. Then you have the Jaguars and the Colts. Again, nothing to play for, but both teams may play their starters for now because it's the last divisional game. They've nothing to compete with, so the lads will be trying to prove themselves for next year. I'm going to pick the Colts in that. Then we have the Bills and the Patriots. So it's our game. We're 13-3. The Patriots are 3-13. Drake May is playing very well, but he's injury prone. They put it up to the Chargers a little bit last weekend. If this was first team on first team, I'd be picking the Bills all day. But we know Josh Allen is starting, but we don't know how long he's going to play. Is James Cook going to play? Is their starters offensive line going to play? Is their wide receivers? Like, are they just going to put out a second string team and just like a preseason game? Who knows? If we play as starters, I'm picking the Bills. So I'm going to take it that we're going to play a lot of the starters. But in this particular game, if we put out our second string, they're going to put out their first. They have to play for their futures, a lot of them. Then the Patriots could have a chance of winning the game. But it doesn't matter to either team because for us, we're number 2 in seed and we're going to be number 2 seed whether we win or lose. So in that thought, I'm going to pick the Bills to win because I'm never going to back against the Bills. But if we play our second string, and as in I know Josh Allen will take the first snap or two, but after that, will he play? Will Amari Cooper play? Kahil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, all them guys, James Cook, Ty Johnson, Deion Dawkins, will they all play? Will our defense play? I know some of them will play, Matt Collins. So we will see. But if they play their first team and we play our second team, then it gives the Patriots a better chance. Put it that way. The Giants at the Eagles. So this would be a revenge game for the Giants. Trying to stop the Eagles normally would be derby games, divisional games, pride. They have Saquon Barkley now. Saquon Barkley ain't playing this weekend, and I think it's right. They give him a rest because they're looking for the playoffs, and Jalen Hurts isn't 100%, so you will need more Saquon Barkley in the playoffs if Jalen Hurts isn't 100%. So what about the record, the rushing record? I would let that slip. The Giants had a surprising win against the Colts last weekend. But they're going to the Eagles. I don't think the Eagles will rest everybody, and on that half, I'm picking the Eagles. Then we have the Texans and the Titans. The Texans are in the playoffs. I think they'll rest everybody. The Titans have just pride to play for. They beat the Texans earlier in the year, and I'm going to pick them to beat them again because even if the Texans had their starting team, they're not playing great. Now, they were, beat correctly. Well, Levis before Houston a few weeks ago, but I just think their season is going to be one and done in the playoffs unless the Steelers really stink when they play them. It's one of the two of them will be one and done. Then we have the 49ers at the Cardinals, Arizona Cardinals. The 49ers, Brock Purdy's kind of injured. They were shocked. Well, they weren't shocking, but he threw 2 awful bad interceptions, awful bad ones last weekend against the Lions. I'm going to pick the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, they'll play their team. They look for a divisional win. They look to push on and see how they go. Then we have a very interesting game. We have the Chiefs at the Broncos. Now, the Broncos were within a field goal kick that was blocked of beating the Chiefs at Arrowhead earlier in the year. The Broncos are 9-7 and they have to win. Last weekend, they were I don't know. I don't think they deserved it. Like they got, it was amazing, amazing second half between Joe Burrow and Bo Nix. It was the two of them put on a show, but Joe Burrow was always ahead of Bo Nix, and he was always chasing. But fair play, he brought them back. Then in overtime, Joey Burrow brought them down for a field goal. It hit the post. Bo Nix had the ball, and nothing happened, and they didn't get up the field far enough to put the Bengals back enough that they would have to rush things. So Joey B did what Joey B does, brought them down, got a touchdown, game over. The Broncos are playing the Chiefs. The Chiefs will rest nearly everybody. So I'm going to pick the Broncos to win. But I want the Bengals. I want to play Joey Burrow at Highmark Stadium. And I don't disrespect the Broncos. I think they've had an amazing season. I think Sean Payton has brought on Bo Nix, has brought on the Broncos, and they're a team in the next 2 or 3 years that will challenge Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. So don't get me wrong. I'm not dishing any Broncos fans, but the Bengals knocked us out a couple of years ago, and I would have played them, and I would have played them on a good game with the two quarterbacks at 100%. They're both offenses are at 100%, and I want to see how that goes. And I said in the message to one of my friends earlier that I'm looking forward to the playoffs. I'm nervous, like any fan would be, but this season I fear nobody. I don't care who you put in front of us. I fear nobody. It's up to us to deliver and to perform, but I fear nobody, and that's something that I rarely ever say in a football game, whether it be soccer, Gaelic, American football. It doesn't matter. You always go, well, Jesus, this team might give us a work. And yes, you play the Chiefs, they'll challenge us, but we've beaten them, and we know we can beat them. The Lions, they're the number one, the NFC, they'll give us challenges, but we've beaten them, and we know how to beat them. And if they're the two number one teams in each division, then the number twos, threes, fours, fives, and so on aren't as good as them, and we should be able to. And I believe we are. I believe what I've seen this year is we take the first half to gauge things, and the second half we perform. And yes, we've played some good first halves in other games, but if you go through the season, it has taken us the first quarter and a half to get into the game, and then we push on in the second half, second quarter of the second half, and second half. So I think that the Broncos will win, and then lock out my Bengals game. But anyway, if I just think the Chiefs will rest everybody, and they'll have the only thing the Chiefs might play some starters is they will have this weekend off if they rest everybody. Then they'll have the following weekend off, and they haven't played since Christmas Day, and it's a long stretch to keep guys going to their first game in the playoffs. But time will tell. But I'm going to pick the Broncos. Then we have the Seahawks at the Rams. The Rams are through. They're won the division. Doesn't matter what the Seahawks do. But I think the Rams will rest players, so I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win. Then you have the Chargers at the Raiders. Chargers will rest people. If they don't, they're daft. And for that reason, I'll pick the Raiders to win. Then we have the last two games kind of have some significance in the weekend. Well, the last one definitely does. This one kind of. The Dolphins play the Jets. The Dolphins need to win, and the Broncos need to lose. Now, going off my picks, that doesn't matter. But I'm going to pick the Dolphins to beat the Jets. The Jets are shocking. My favourite picture for a long time off the field, but in a sporting picture, was Josh Allen looking out at the boombox last weekend. That was priceless. Gangsters paradise. And out goes the gangsters. Well, they went home fairly quick. But the Jets are a terrible organisation, I'm afraid. It's not that I want to pick on them because they're a division, no rival. But as I talk about things in a few minutes, I'll explain it more. I just think the Dolphins will win. And then Sunday night, it's the Sunday night football. It's the 14-2 Vikings at the 14-2 Lions. And this is the one game that stands out for all the weekend as a real game that really has something to offer. It's the number one seed. Dan Campbell, I have heard you get criticised for playing your players last weekend. Well, I ain't going to criticise you. You are right. You have set this game up perfectly. You have your players in the right frame of mind to play this game. The Vikings and Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell are flying. Jared Goff and Dan Campbell and his Lions are flying. And this game is a toss of a coin, which will win it. The Lions beat the Vikings earlier in the season, but both teams are on great runs at the minute. I would love that the two of them would be the number one seeds, if possible, because they're two teams that, like the Bills, have been really stretching for years to try and get there. Vikings have lost 4 Super Bowls like ourselves, and the Lions have never been there in the NFL era. But this weekend, I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with the Lions because they are the home team, and I think Dan Campbell has a streak in him that he and his players have, that they will go. Even tonight against us, our offense was tearing them to shreds, but their offense never gave up and kept going and kept going. So, you admire that. But whichever these two teams are number one, I admire them anyway, both of them, and I wish them a good run in the playoffs. They can get to the Super Bowl until they meet us, and then after that, sayonara. But they're my picks for Week 18. As I said, there's a few games there that are very interesting and ones that can't wait to watch. And then there's other games that you go, well, on paper they have something to offer, but whether they play their players or not, like if we play our starters, then it'll be a great game. If we don't play our starters, then it could be now, backs against the wall kind of thing, and keep going. So anyway, that's part A. Part B of my show tonight now is I'm going to just talk quickly about the surprises of the season and a few other things. So my 3 surprises this season, and there's been a lot, but I'm not going to put them in number 1, 2, or 3. But I am just going to put them in as these are my 3 for the reasons I will give. Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. When J.J. McCarthy went down injured in preseason, to be honest, other than Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings, everybody else thought that their season was over. If you heard pundits go where they're going to finish, it was between 3 and 4, the Bears and themselves in the division. They're at 14-2, and they're playing Sunday night for the number 1 seed. Their wide receivers are on fire. Their quarterback's on fire. Their tight end is on fire. Their running back's on fire. And their defense under Brian Flores are on fire. And you're going, is this a blip? But if it was a blip, it would last 3 or 4 games, and then it would disappear. But this is a full season. Now, I've heard on Fox Sports, and I've heard on ESPN, and I've heard on NFL Network, will they pay Sam Darnold? And to be honest, if you pay Baker Mayfield 35 million or whatever he's on, 30 plus million per season, then you should be at least matching it with Sam Darnold. Is he a 50 million quarterback? Well, maybe give him 35, 40 this year and say, look, if you do another season like this, we'll up you next year to 50 and see where we go. But as for a surprise this season, he's been a surprise. My second surprise has been Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, because there again were a rookie quarterback brought in. Dan Quinn was the new head coach. There wasn't a lot expected. That they were facing the Eagles, the Cowboys, and the Giants were supposed to do something, and third or fourth again was as good as they were supposed to be. Well, they're in the playoffs. They're 11-5, and whether they win or not at the weekend doesn't matter. But Jane Daniels, for me, and I'll talk about them, the rookie of the year in a few minutes, but he has excelled where Caleb Williams has gone backwards. He has gone forward, and hats off to Jaden Daniel and the Commanders, and wish them a run in the playoffs. Now, my last surprise of the year, and it's not a surprise to me, but it is a surprise to outsiders of the Bills, is the Buffalo Bills. Not anyone in particular, the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, and I have seen clips of every, not everyone, but 90% of pundits going, oh, they're third. They'll fight with the Patriots for fourth. They've lost their wide receivers. They've lost their defense. They lost all the senior players in their team, and they're this, that, and the other. We have Josh Allen, guys. We have Josh Allen. You don't realize it. We've Josh Allen, the best quarterback in the league, the best quarterback in the NFL, the best player in the NFL. We've Josh Allen. We, he got a team. He didn't get individuals, superstars, big egos. He got a team. We have a team. Look at the sideline. Look at the the friendship. Sorry, I'll get tongue-tied saying the other word. But look at it. How well they get on. How well they fight for each other, battle for each other. See, it doesn't matter who gets the MVP, because when I talk about this in a few minutes, all four names I'm going to give all deserve it. It's not like other years. But his offensive line got him an MVP chain with a beautiful catch on it. And this is what they think of him. Didn't have to, So for me going into this year, I'd be honest, I thought it might be 12-5, 11-6, with getting Keon Coleman in. Now we had Mary Cooper at the start, but Kale Shakir, getting him adjusted to more, play and more time. Matt Collins as well. Then getting Dalton Kincaid, Fish, Dawson Knox back into himself, and Dawson Knox has become his old Dawson Knox. Your defense, we lost a lot of senior defense, and Matt Milano got injured, so I wasn't fully sure whether we'd, be as good as, not as good, but have as many wins as we did. But I did expect us to be in the playoffs. We're in the playoffs. So not for me that we're surprised, but for the rest of the world, they are surprised that we are where we are. Now, our thing is, we don't fall off. Don't give anyone a chance to say, oh, well, you did so well, but when you got to here, you collapsed. We don't. So we'll get this weekend out of the game and out of the way. And then next week, we'll talk about the playoffs, and we'll talk about the first round. We'll know exactly who we have. You know who I want. I want Joey Burrow. I want Joey Burrow in Highmark, and I want a slugfest. And I want to show the NFL how good we are. But that's what I want. So now, there are my three surprises. The next one is the three biggest letdowns of the season. There's been a lot of teams that could say they're let down, or individuals or parts of teams or whatever. But for me, these are the three that stood out. The first one, again, they're in no order, are the Indianapolis Colts. I didn't expect the Indianapolis Colts to win the Super Bowl, but I expected the Indianapolis Colts to be in the playoffs. And what I seen last weekend was shambolic. A team that's not interested. I know Jonathan Taylor is an amazing running back, but that day against the Denver Broncos, the way he let the ball go, that was the turning point for me in the game. They could be in the Broncos seat right now. The Colts are, 7-9. So if you they'd be 9-7 right now going into this weekend if they had looked after the ball in Denver and beat the Giants last weekend. And Pat McAfee, and I'm not a Pat McAfee fan, but one thing Pat McAfee is passionate about is the Colts. And he has had goals at the Colts during the year, and rightly so. And they're a team that has so much talent, from quarterback, running back, wide receivers, tight ends, defense. And who knows when you get to the playoffs what happens. Any team can win it. But they should be in the playoffs in my eyes, and they didn't, and they're let down. And for me, they're one of the biggest disappointments of the season. The next two are in the one city. So when I tell you one, you know who the other is. They're the New York Giants. The New York Giants, I don't want to see any man get the road or get sacked or anything, but Brian Dable and Joe Shane, whatever way you pronounce his name over there, general manager and head coach, from watching Hard Knocks at preseason, This has been abysmal. Now, yes, you got the win last weekend against the Colts, but your season has been a joke. Saquon Barkley, you let him go. You wouldn't pay him. He went to the Eagles. He almost set a franchise record. He's not playing this weekend, but irrelevant whether he would or wouldn't. The season he's had, the impact he's had on the Eagles. If Daniel Jones, if you'd got a quarterback in the draft and pushed Daniel Jones out earlier, you might have had a season. Maybe not as good as what the Eagles are having, but you might be in the playoffs. But you went with Daniel Jones, and then the way you treated Daniel Jones was abysmal. And now players, I don't know, do they want to be there or not? Malik Neighbours is frustrated. Now, Drew Lock has improved things a little bit, but is Drew Lock your quarterback going forward? I don't know. So I thought the Giants might make the playoffs, but would be a hell of a lot better than what they are right now. So they're let down. And my number one letdown is two-pronged. Is New York Jets / Aaron Rodgers. If you're a Jets fan and you're watching this, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but I am only saying what I see, and it's the truth. Aaron Rodgers wasn't wanted at Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, they wanted rid of him because he's toxic. The New York Jets were looking for a quarterback to propel them into the playoffs and towards the Super Bowl. And they got an ego. But this ego has been drama before he signed for them and since he signed for them. And last weekend, he tapped out of the game against the Bills at 40-0 down because he goes, I think it's time to give Tyrod a go. That it was his call. Tyrod Taylor went out and rightly so got a huge applause for what he did for the Bills when he was there. And he led the Jets down. Now, I know we rested some players, but he led them down 2 drives, 2 touchdowns. Well done, Tyrod. All Aaron Rodgers did was get mauled. And if you bring him back next year, then you'll be another year of being a shambles. And I am newish to this game compared to others, but I have eyes and I can see. I don't need stats or numbers. I can know if a player wants to play or not. And that guy is only there so he can be seen by everybody. It's not his fault if it goes wrong, but if something goes right, it's on him. And that's not a team player. You look at the number one quarterbacks in the league. And I was going to do that tonight, but I'll do it another night. I have 4 or 5 now. I'll go through them again in the tier. But before the season, the top 3 quarterbacks I had that I could not separate by any ways necessary, they all had pluses, and their minuses wasn't too many, were Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. Those 3 guys do not blame anyone when they lose other than themselves. Whether it's their mistake or not, they'll blame themselves because they're team players. Aaron Rodgers is not a team player. Now, since I was on here last, I heard that the owner's 17-year-old son makes decisions of what happens. He didn't sign Jerry Jeudy because he wasn't high enough on Madden. Now, who knows if this is true or not, but if it is, then the New York Jets have nothing to look forward to as a fan. What have you to look forward to? It's a joke. And, teams go through ruts. The Bills went through ruts for years, and now we're out of it and we're in a purple patch. But we know in years to come, it'll happen that the team will dip a bit. Other teams, the Chiefs will dip. The Eagles will dip. Some other teams will come up. That's just the way it is. It's the same in all sports. But the Jets, if this is the way they're being run, and I had it earlier in the year where Jerry Jones and Johnson are the 2 biggest jokes in NFL, the way they run their organizations. Well, if you're fans of them, I'm sorry, but right now the Jets are streaks ahead of everyone else. So they're my 3 biggest letdowns. Because if you go back to all the pundits at the start of the year, it's the Jets and the Dolphins that was within the AFC East. Well, at least the Dolphins fought to get to where they are. And they did miss Tua for a few weeks. The Jets, with everything, just rolled over. End of story. Now, lastly, because I won't stay on much longer because it's ran over what I thought it would be, Rookie of the Year. So, in my eyes, the guys that should be Rookie of the Year have a chance. Probably it's nailed on, but Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thompson Jr. There's a few others, but they'd be 5 I'd be looking at. If Bo Nix doesn't get the Broncos to the playoffs, it's Jaden Daniels nailed on. Brock Bowers won't get it because he played with the Raiders, even though he's had an amazing season. Malik Neighbors won't get it because he's with the Giants and he's had an amazing season. And Brian Thomas Jr. is with the Jags, and he's also had a brilliant season. But if Jaden Daniels is the only rookie in the playoffs, then Jaden Daniels is going to get it, and he'll deserve it. He like him or Bo Nix have brought teams to where they weren't expected at the start of the year, so they were the two guys I'd be looking at. For the MVP, well, it's between Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Saquon Barkley, and Joe Burrow. And I can give you an argument for it being for each of them players, and I wouldn't be wrong. And I could give you a counter argument for being for someone else, and I wouldn't be wrong. But I'm going with Josh Allen. And the reason being, Joe Burrow's Cincinnati Bengals may not make the playoffs. Joe Burrow has been awesome, but this is also dictated on how teams are getting on. And unfortunately for the Cincinnati Bengals, even if they get to the playoffs, they've had 8 losses. Saquon Barkley won't get it because he's a running back and it's a quarterback kind of prize. There should be a prize for each individual position, which would be a fairer thing, and just call it that rather than an MVP. But he's not going to get it. Lamar Jackson, you hear a lot of people shouting from, he has had an amazing, all these guys have had amazing seasons. But he has Zay Flowers, he has Bateman, he has Derrick Henry, he has Mitchell, he has a line of proven quality to throw to pass to running backs, the whole shebang. Now, don't get me wrong, he has been amazing. And I'm not here for an argument. I'm just making a discussion. Josh Allen has been equally amazing. But Josh Allen has a rookie wide receiver, a wide receiver traded from the Cleveland Browns. No disrespect, Curtis Samuels, that came from the Commanders, Matt Collins, and Kahil Shakir. Now, I love all these guys, so don't get me wrong, and I don't diss them in any way. But if you're looking from outside organization and you look at what the Ravens have, or you look at what the Eagles have, or Joe Burrow has Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, like 2 of the best in the business. So for me, with what, as in they rate as quality in the NFL, then the Buffalo Bills are way off. But what we have is more important than total quality, is we have a team spirit, and team spirit will win you more things than quality and misery any day of the week. So for me, I'm going to be a Bills man, and I'm going to be a Bills fan, and I'm going for Josh Allen, MVP. And if he doesn't get it, I'll be disappointed because I think he's done more than anyone else has. But if any of the other 3 guys gets it, you can't argue either, because this has been a season unlike any other where quality has really, really shone out. That's my show for tonight, folks. I'm off this weekend, so I may do one over the weekend. I might do the quarterback ratings just to get back into the swing of things. Tuesday night, I'll do a quick review of Week 18. Then Thursday again, I'll start previewing the playoffs and try and get back into normal routine, normal surface. Again, I do apologise for being missing the last few weeks, but thankfully now this side of my mouth here has shrunk back down to normality, and the pain that was there and the issues that were there are slowly but surely clearing up and going away. So thank you. So again, Happy New Year to you all. Have a wonderful, safe and happy weekend, and happy 2025. It's a hard weekend to go and get excited about football because there is some great paper games there, but they'll turn out to be great with players being rested for the playoffs and stuff. Who knows? The last thing I want to say is we're only into 2025, but there's been a few bad things happen in the world. So please look after each other and please respect each other and their ideas. Killing people or hurting people is not a way forward. It's, life is too precious, life is too short. Tell the people you love them, and enjoy every day and make the most of it. And please God, these atrocities that have happened over the last 2 or 3 days of this year alone, on top of everything that's happened before, will stop, and people will just look out for each other and look after each other and be happy. So until Tuesday night, folks, stay safe, stay happy, stay together, and as always, my friends, go Bills.